Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Powerhouse Brand. I have a lovely guest on today, and we're going to be talking all about nervous system regulation, and just how you can really move forward and progress in your career goals as an entrepreneur in a way that feels really aligned to you without hustling. So, Nicole Gomez, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Could you tell the audience what it is that you do and how you got into this work?
Yeah, of course. Um, this is where I'll start. So, I am a nervous system and trauma expert and a business mentor for entrepreneurs. And really, at the base of it, I help entrepreneurs, I help women rewrite the legacies that were written for them. And so, how we do that, we rewire your nervous system, rewire your brain, your relationship with money for, so that you can scale, lead with freedom and really unlock wealth. And for me, wealth encompasses, yes, money, and money is important, but so much more than money. It encompasses freedom that really outlives you through, the next generation. So yeah, that's really what I'm about. I'm also the founder of the Trauma Informed Nervous System Coaching Academy, where I train coaches to really start to hold spaces, because I'm all about safety and integrity. And I teach you and train you really to the most excellent standards, and mastery is really what, at the foundation of the values of what we do in this academy, so that you can help your clients really achieve, get down to the root level patterns and expand their capacity for true success. Again, for true success as defined by them, not by society, not by their conditioning, and really lead from a place of safety and regulation and freedom and capacity. So that's who I'm about. Now, what brought me to this? It sounds very cheesy, but it's my own lived experience. It's really my own lived experience, my own journey. I was someone who held a lot of trauma within my body. Uh, all of it was unacknowledged. I had absolutely no idea. And I was essentially living a life dissociated. What we call dissociated, it simply means really disconnected from the body. And I know a lot of people will relate to that, moving on autopilot, numb, um, going through the motions. And yes, I was very quote unquote successful by society standards in terms of what I achieved in my, in my previous career. But I was at the point where, and I always say, unless we do this work, unless we create this really strong foundations with the nervous system, something is always going to give, and it did for me. We don't just burn out once. Burnout is not just like a singular thing. Unless we dive deep into this work, it was like multiple burnouts, and eventually it was just a complete. Maybe I don't know if breakdown is the word here, but it was, yeah, really a complete reevaluation of my whole life, of what I'm here for, what I'm here to do. And it came down to we live one life. And so this is where I went on my own. It started kind of my own journey of like, this isn't it. This can't be it for me. This can't be it for me. I was, in my 20s at the time. This can't be it for me. And so I went on my kind of what you would call, again, I don't like this word, but like a healing journey. I tried some therapy. I worked on different aspects. Went into the self-development space and into these supposed healing spaces. And really how my work came together is looking at what has been incomplete in my journey, why it's taken so long, what I achieve with my clients. And it humbles me every time, but what I achieve in literally weeks or months with my clients took me years, and it's taken them years and decades. And still they're at a place where they're still circling around the same patterns and still stuck. So really looking at what's incomplete, what also is harmful. There's so much harm out there, and it's so important to talk about it, and not enough people are talking about it, because it's harm that we don't see. When it's invisible harm, it's like to society, to the world, it's non-existent, but it's harm nonetheless. And so this was what brought me to my trauma informed nervous system work, and really to founding the coaching academy, is This is work that's complete and comprehensive and that is rooted in safety and real results, real sustainable results. So I've spoken for quite a while, but that's little bit of the background of
I
what
love
brought me
that.
here.
I love it. You talked a little bit there on the patterns that we have. And I know myself included, I know lots of people listening to this have conversations with people about it, that it's very easy to kind of get not necessarily trapped, but stuck in these repeated cycles and patterns. And they're not always patterns that we've created ourselves, are they? A lot of them are generational that have been passed down through what our parents did, what our mothers did, what our grandmothers did. And then it just becomes these sort of behaviors. Is that something? Well, obviously it is because that's the work you do, but it is something that we can get out of. We can get out of those loops that we just feel like we're in those never-ending cycles, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And you said the words like that we created ourselves or passed down by generation is that we didn't, it's what our system created to help us survive.
Yeah.
It's what our systems created for safety. And yes, passed down through generations. And there's been so many studies on generational trauma that essentially we've taken on the DNA, what our parents and the generations before them have uh, taken on their systems took on as this is a threat. So it was in order to protect the generations after that, we had to take that on within our DNA that this is a threat. Our brain and our nervous system is perceiving this is a threat. And so yes, patterns are essentially they are survival patterns. They are survival mechanisms rather. So when your brain perceives something as unsafe, and again, it's not logical, it's not rational. Maybe maybe something that, you're perceiving something to be perhaps a rejection, or you're afraid of that rejection, or afraid of that judgment of what people think of you, all of that. Your brain and your nervous system essentially believe that you are going to die if you are rejected. That is essentially what is happening. It is equivalent to death. So what it's going to do, it's going to help prevent you from essentially dying. So it's going to help you survive. And so in order to do that, it tells you, and this is where beliefs take hold and patterns take hold, it tells you you're not good enough. Because if you believe you're not good enough, you're not going to go and put yourself out there, are you? Right? So it's protecting you from actually being rejected, a potential rejection, or potential judgment that again is a huge threat to the system. And so through this work, what we do is, and what those, and before I go into how we start to, yes, dissolve these patterns, and they actually dissolve. It doesn't take a lifetime. I have to say this because there's this huge narrative in the, a huge narrative in the healing and self-development space that it takes a lifetime. Yes, we continue to evolve, we continue to expand, particularly as business owners. We expand in terms of how many clients we can hold, how much money we can hold as we move up, hopefully, and grow and and scale in our businesses. And with that, yes, layers come up, but it won't be the same thing repeating again and again. And that's what I see and this is where something gives, and I see business crumbling, is that those same patterns that we didn't deal with at the very start, the very foundation, they keep showing up, keep showing up, and then there's more that starts adding on, and then the capacity is just overflowing, right? There's no capacity for it. And so what happened when I said your brain and your nervous system perceive as a threat is that you were stuck in some stress response, right? Or through DNA, you've been stuck in some stress response, right? So you're constantly in that fight or flight or freeze stress response. That is what a pattern is. It's like this is a threat. We're going to help you survive through that threat. And so what we do through this work is we complete that stress response. That stress response that was stuck, that's saying like, this is still a threat, this is still a threat. We are actually completing that stress response. And when you actually complete, and this is what is called resolution in this work, when you create resolution, those patterns have no more use, right? They are those strategies are irrelevant. They don't need to keep you safe anymore. You don't need to believe that you're not good enough because we've completed those loops that began where those beliefs took hold, or where those patterns took hold. So yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because again, and so many of my clients, in fact, the majority of my clients have done so much work on themselves. And and they've grown. I'm not saying they haven't grown. And yes, they've grown, but there's a certain point where, and this is what I call like the first level of healing, they get to a certain point where it needs to go deeper.
Yeah.
And we need to start working through these pieces and these loops and create resolution. And so when these clients come to me, in fact, one of them recently said, like, oh my gosh, Nicole, you can actually rewire your brain. And why she said that, because she has spent years trying to put, put boundaries, trying to like, there's so much effort that's gone into it, right? Trying to do all of these things
Yeah.
to help protect her, to help protect her energy. We talk about in the industry, talk a lot about energy leaks and all this, but it's always come from effort. It's like we need to like push ourselves into this place of activation, right? Within the system. The system is still in this place of high alert, but we're like, oh, but I still need to put this boundary. And it feels really like, it's the body is not, and it's like it comes through force and through
Yeah.
effort. But when this client said this, she goes to me, because I did these and I think it was boundaries in her business. I don't know what it was. She goes, it was just effortless. And it was organic. It was that the brain and the body did not go into high alert like this is a threat. Like actually saying no or putting this boundary is a threat to
Yeah.
the system. It actually knew that there was safety there. And so we don't need to like force ourselves to put boundaries. We don't need to force ourselves to do this and that. It actually happens effortlessly once there's resolution, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
This is such a good conversation to have, I think, particularly with it being the start of a new year. And I know we talked a little bit before hitting record on here about this new year. And it's very easy to kind of get sucked into the whole, right, new year, we've got to build that momentum. We've got to go, 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 and like force. And obviously, if you're somebody that has these cycles, and it might even be because I know this has happened for me in the past, I'm so aware that I'm in the cycle, that I'm not escaping that
Yes.
same pattern that just keeps creeping up year after year. Like it's been a lot of work that I've been doing over the last 18, 24 months to understand about softness and flow and actually stepping back rather than trying really hard to do all the things and trying hard to do the personal development like you just talked about.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a good time to be really working on this, really listening to your body and doing this nervous system work because actually you can't push, you can't hustle, you can't go, go, go when you've got these patterns that you actually need to work through.
Yeah, and because I see this all the time in the industry, like, people talk about quantum leaps or talk about making big moves. But if making those big moves or these quantum leaps is having you being forced into survival, right? And that's what the industry loves to call discomfort. Now, regulation is not the absence of discomfort. Now, your body going into like this is a real threat is is very different to what I call discomfort. Like this is the body actually saying like we need to keep you safe here. We need to keep you safe. And so if any of these big moves, these quantum leaps are having you to push you into that survival state, it's not
Yeah.
sustainable. And yes, it may work temporarily, but what I'm all about, and I feel like we're aligned in this way, is that I'm all about sustainability. And we're not here to crash, to speed and sprint and then crash and burn. We're here to create really steady foundations for something for me. I know that again is going to outlive me, and this is what legacy. We talk about legacy, and I'm all about legacy. Like from a personal standpoint, like this work for me is hugely personal. I come from a background. I'm going to go off a little tangent here, but
Go
I'm
for it.
Lebanese originally. I'm Lebanese originally, and so when I spoke about at the start of this rewriting our legacy, like the legacy that was written for me was to to self-sacrifice, to be that martyr mother, to to put everyone else first, to work so hard, that actually making money and wealth comes from like just working so hard that you're constantly in that survival state. And for me, it's highly personal because this work is all about what I'm creating for my children. I have two daughters as well, and for the generations after that, because it doesn't this work doesn't just touch you, it touches every single person that you
Yeah.
touch. And um I went off at a tangent, so I don't know where I started with this, but yeah, it's all about sustainability, and it's about really creating something that's really rich, and and to be able to really savor it. So yeah, and when you said about the slowness and the ease, you spoke about flow. again, a nervous system that sees that as dangerous, because I did, and I'm sure that, and we were speaking about this
Yeah.
earlier, right? You did as well,
Yeah.
is that when our systems view this as danger, again, your system is in, it makes no rational sense, but it sees it as danger, then you can try and force that flow or force that slowness, but there's always going to be an element of control. And I see this in a lot of entrepreneurs who want to bring that ease, and then there's still the element of control, because control goes hand in hand with trauma. Again, it's, why do we need to believe that we're not enough? Why do we need to use these patterns? As we're trying to control the outcome so that your system feels, it's a false sense of safety, but so that it feels safe. I'd off at a tangent, but
I love that. For anyone that is listening to this, that's maybe listened to this and thought, I'm there, like that's me. I keep repeating these same patterns. How can I get out of it? I understand I need to work on my nervous system. What would be the very first thing that you would recommend that person does?
so let me give a little bit of background before I answer that question. There is, when you got stuck in a stress response, yeah, through, yes, inheriting it through DNA and through childhood. When you got stuck in a stress response, what happened is that there's a brain area which is called the medial prefrontal cortex that had to shut down to help you move into that place of survival, to help you move into that place of safety. Or we know it's a false sense of safety, but keep you safe. Now, it shut down so that you don't feel that pain, that deep pain and that deep wound that, again, your system is equivalent is what's the verb I'm looking for, like equating
Yeah.
to death. So because to feel that pain is literally equivalent to death for the system. Again, it's not rational, but that's how our physiology is. We come from animals, so that's how our physiology was created. Now, that part of the brain shut down, and it's the same part of the brain that is responsible with your sense of self. That's the same part of the brain that is responsible for the sense of who you are, for part of your identity, and for what we call interoception, is your ability to feel within your body. And so, when we live in a society that is lost, and I was that person, lost in, like, who am I? Like, what am I here to do? Like, who actually am I? We've been living in this, as a certain quote unquote identity or person, again, that essentially living off our survival patterns, and we've taken on those survival patterns as who we are, right, as our identity. I hear this every single day, like, I'm the perfectionist, I'm the people pleaser, I'm the this or that, or she's this, or she's the perfectionist, and all of this, and we've taken on these survival patterns as our identity. And so when it's that same part of the brain that's responsible for who we are and our felt sense of being able to feel, and interoception is your ability to feel within your body. And so to start to really create the deep sustainable change, to close those loops, we need to start to bring activity back into that brain area. And how we do that, and this is where I'm coming to the answer to your question, how we do that, we start to feel. Now, this is where it's really important, because I always say we can't do this work alone. Yes, at a certain point we can, but we can't do this work alone. And why? Because we need a space, a co-regulated space, where someone can see you and can hold you. And when your system goes into overwhelm, because your system is not, when you've been numb for a long time, which is what that brain area has done, where it's shut down, it's really helped us not feel a lot of things. When we start to bring those emotions online, it can feel overwhelming for your system. And so this is where a co-regulated space is really important too. And we use a number of skills, which I teach in my coaching academy, teach coaches, to help you start to bring activity into that brain area in a way that your system does not become overwhelmed. And it's through things that we call titration or pendulation. And so what you can do to start is what I call check-ins. Now, check-ins are, we use the breath, yes. So it's check-ins are start to feel your inner world. Again, we start to feel what's the sensations in the body. So what I always recommend, like, put your phone on airplane mode, put a timer on for, let's say, like It can be anything, right? It's particularly at the beginning for a lot of people who've been numb, like I was for a long time, to actually start to feel feels way too uncomfortable for the
Yeah.
system. Right? We hear it all the time. Like people are like, I'm not that person who can sit still, or I'm not that person who can meditate, or can be quiet, or be still. And that's again, it's not who you are. That was what you had. That's what your system had to do to help you survive. So so it can be 30 seconds. It can be 1 minute. You can work. It can be 3 minutes. Um, Put that timer on. Close your eyes, make any adjustments you need to make, and then start to slow down the breath. Now, where I focus on the breath is focus on your rib cage. Now, especially if you haven't been able to feel for a long time, what I recommend is, I know this is a podcast, so people can't see me, but you wrap your arms around the front of your body as if you're giving yourself a hug, and then you place your hands onto your side ribs. I always find that that's really helpful as you as you soften the shoulders. And then from there, as you inhale, you feel your ribs expand out into your hands, and as you exhale, you feel the ribs contract back into the body, away from your hands. Now, if anyone wants anything, wants to be guided through this, because it can be particularly at the beginning, yeah, it will feel easier for the system to be guided through it. Just let me know, and I can send you something. But what I want you to focus on is slowing down the breath, okay? And we're not using the breath to make you feel better. We're not using the breath to help calm you. We're not using the breath to fix anything, like any discomfort in the body. This is where this work differs, is we use the breath to feel. We're going to start to actually feel that discomfort, and the breath is simply a resource, just like a trauma-informed nervous system coach is that resource in a co-regulated space. It's because a resource helps your system not go into that place of overwhelm. Okay, because that place of overwhelm is just going to get you, you're going to like, no, never mind, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going there. And this is how we stay kind of in that same pattern. So the breath is simply a resource so that you don't go into that place of overwhelm. So feel your feet and start to notice the sensations in your body. Like notice what you feel physically. Like you may feel like tightness. You might feel like, ooh, this feels really uncomfortable right now. And that's good. And you continue to use the breath. If you want to exhale out through the mouth, I always recommend that to kind of to help discharge any extra energy in the nervous system. And if you start to do that regularly, you're going to start to, and this is the very start, and again, it might feel difficult, so it might be 10 seconds initially, you're going to start to bring activity back into that brain area. And then from there, the next step to there is when you feel activated or when you feel triggered, right? When you feel like in your business, you're worried about saying no to this client, or you're worried about whether they're going to say no, whatever the situation is, and you notice your body going into survival, essentially getting activated. This is where like this work is so important, because we're getting right into, we're not going to just calm you down, just like a lot of what the healing space will do, right? You feel anxious and then you use the breath to calm yourself down. We're not going to do that anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to explore. So I want you to ask yourself as you when you're triggered, notice what you're feeling in your body. Do what I just spoke about with the check-in. Notice what you're feeling in your body. Notice that discomfort. Breathe out through the mouth. Do that as many times as you need. And then converse with your body like, hey, body, what are you trying to tell me right now? What feels like a threat right now? What's the story you're telling me right now? Or another question can be, and this is a really powerful one, is what are you afraid is going to happen? Because this goes way beyond this particular situation. Your system is perceiving this as a threat because it shows some kind of parallel with a threat in childhood or
Yeah.
through generations or whatever it is. So we want to go deeper. So when you have the answer to like, what are you afraid is going to happen? It might be that client says no. We want to go deeper. What are you afraid is going to happen if that client says no? What are you afraid is going to happen? And I want you to keep going with that question again and again and again. And you'll notice and it's going to come down to the root of it is, I'm afraid I'm afraid my reputation is, people are going to yell at me. I'm afraid that there's going to be some consequences. There's going to be some punishment. Or, I don't know. I'm afraid that I'm not good enough. It's going to get to the root of it, which
Yeah.
didn't originate here. It originated somewhere in childhood, particularly between the ages of 0 to 7, right? We don't need to remember when it originated. What we need to do is to actually feel it
Yeah.
and feel that little child inside of you. And this is where we go more into this is the work that I do is it's a different variety of inner child work because a lot of it can be talking through, and yes, stories are important and we talk through stories in my work, but it's essentially like how your body is reacting to that story. Notice what you feel in your body when you think about that child that didn't feel good enough. When you think about that child that was punished or that was yelled at, that had those consequences, and just notice not what you felt back then. This is where we then go into places where we reactivate the trauma and re-traumatize. This is, what do I feel in my body now as I think about that child and how she didn't feel good enough, how she felt
Yeah.
alone, how she all of this. So those are the steps to go through. Is notice what's in your body as you're being activated. Check-ins are really important. Notice what's in your body. Ask that question, where did this show up for me as a child? And then what do you feel in your body right now? And really staying connected with the body as you do that. But again, the first step is the check-ins because we won't be able to go that far. We don't want to come from this from a mental space, from a cognitive space, right? We don't want to think our way through like, oh, because my dad did this, and then we don't want to think through this. We want to actually feel through this, and that's how we create resolution. But to do that, we need to bring activity back into that brain area. Otherwise, it's always going to take us into that cognitive space.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And go and try
Definitely.
that, and it's going to revolutionize the way that the way that you'll notice the way that you react to things. It's these things will dissolve when we
Yeah.
create full resolution.
I love that. And I think it's just allowing yourself that space and time to do this, to make this a priority. Like you said, even if it was 30 seconds in your day, like
Yes.
just make it a priority. And I think so many people might feel frustrated, overwhelmed with their to-do list. They've got to rush here, there, and everywhere with kids or work, and they're trying to do all these things and then not make this kind of 30 seconds or a minute of their day a priority to help them move through it rather than just constantly force. I think as women, we're very good at doing that, aren't we? We're very good because we can multitask really well. And we are the ones that are meant to be sort of holding the family and doing all the other things. But actually, when you think who we were thousands of years ago, we were literally there to raise the family. We didn't have jobs to do. We weren't there to bring in income. We weren't there to go and hunt. Like we've got all these different jobs now. So now I guess is more important than ever to be making sure we're doing this work.
Yeah, and you were talking about like women are good at multitasking, but we know, particularly I see so many, and I work with a lot of mothers, is that again there's a breaking point, and something gives when we don't have that capacity. And what this work does is it frees up that capacity because all of those signals, all of those not signals, all of those alarm bells that are going off in your brain and your system, literally every moment of the day, right, that are going off in your system and you have no idea that they are unconsciously, it's taking up all that capacity. So when we do this work, we create resolution. Every time we create resolution, it frees up the capacity. And then what that does is you're able to hold all these areas in your life, and not from like exhaustion, not from effort, but you hold all of these things, and with that coexists peace and joy and a real sense of being able to hold so many things in your life. And I see that even more in this work. It's just like the gift that keeps on giving. Like I see this as a business owner, as raising two daughters, and very intentionally wanting to be very present with them and in the way that I raise them. I'm also married. I have friends. There's and then recently I've had each of my parents go through some really big health challenges, like huge health challenges. And I've noticed my system navigating through it because, again, going back to that brain area, I'm able to process it as it comes. I'm able to grieve it as it comes and
Yeah.
navigate through it as it comes. And again, it's not the absence of discomfort, regulation. It's not the absence of hurt, of sadness, of anger. It's the ability to actually feel those things without your system going into overwhelm. Um, and overwhelm might mean shut down. It might mean not feeling them as well. So it's being able to hold all these things and not feel like we're the ones who are multitasking and it's becoming
Yeah.
too much and we're exhausted. Being able to hold them, but from a place
Yeah.
of real ease
Yeah.
and abundance. And that's how we create it, is through, it's through this.
I love that. How can our listeners find out more about working with you and just connect with you online? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, I mean, just come and and reach out on Instagram. My handle is Nicole Rose Coaching. Nicole Rose, like the flower coaching. Yes, that's one of my main platforms. I'm also on LinkedIn. Just look me up, Nicole Gomez. I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere. Just find me, and then we'll and then we'll have a chat.
Amazing. Thank
Yeah,
you. And make sure you do check in the show notes below, everybody, where you can connect with Nicole. And thank you so much for coming on today. It's been amazing just to talk more about nervous system. And this work is just so important, especially for those of us that are very impact driven. It doesn't mean that we need to compromise, like creating an impact. We need to make sure that we are putting ourselves first, don't we? Like we have to be able to do that.
and this is the driver for more impact, for
Exactly.
more acceleration, and for more money. And I see that with a lot of people come to me and they're very successful, and it's like it just accelerates it. And in ways that's beyond belief. This is the driver. It's not productivity or ease or whatever, or slowness or regulation. It's this stuff is what unlocks it even more. And again, it's like it's our brains. And I know we were just finishing off, but I wanted to add this because it's our brains again trying to protect us, that if we were to slow down, or if we were to do this work instead of actually doing those tasks, in this moment that we feel like we really need to do, our brain believes again, and it's there to protect us. It believes that we're going to lose everything, that we won't be successful, but that's simply our brains trying to keep us safe in some way. But it's quite the opposite. It's the driver for more impact, more for really meaningful legacy, and a fuck ton of money. Hopefully we can
Yes. And
bear on this.
we need more of us making more money, creating a bigger impact. I love it. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on the show. And please do make sure you guys listening to this do go and connect with Nicole. See you in the next episode.